This paper was presented at the JCT Traffic Signals Symposium 2023 in Nottingham, thanks to the support of AGD Systems, INRIX, Message Maker Displays, PTV Group, Simplify Systems, Smart Micro UK and TRL Software.
Today, Rob and I are going to talk about the model auditing process and the latest update to version 4. So, we're going to talk through TfL and its responsibilities, why we provide modelling guidance, what the guidance documents are, give you a brief overview of the model auditing process, some user feedback we've had from the previous versions, what's changed in this latest version, and where to get hold of the guidance documents and any future updates we might have planned. So, we're the local network authority for London. We've got a network management duty over the TLRN, so that's shown in red, if I remember rightly. And then we also have an interest in the SRN, shown in pink, although that's under the control of the local boroughs. And there's about 6,500 traffic signals under our authority as well. So, going down into our area for the network management responsibilities, we're part of the Network Management and Resilience Directorate. And then within that, there's 3 closely linked teams. We've got Network Performance Delivery, who handle the day-to-day operation of the network. We've got the Network Impact Specialist team, who ensure that network management duty has been upheld. And then the team that Rob and I sit in, which is the Modelling and Visualisation team. We support, look at the operational modelling, detailed traffic modelling in any schemes, and planned interventions in the network. And that's more on a detailed short-term basis, say like within the 5-year threshold. We should say that we're not the only modelling team within TfL. We've also got our counterparts, which include the strategic analysis team, who look at more a longer threshold of modelling and more like policy-based decisions. There's the public transport service planning team who look at bus, rail, tram timetables and frequencies, and also the spatial planning team who look at planning applications and modelling associated with that. And why TfL feel it's important to provide modelling guidance. We want to make sure any models have simplifications. They can't be perfect. So we've just got to make sure that any assumptions that have been made to make those simplifications in the modelling world are fit for purpose, and we haven't made any errors in that. We want to make sure that the modelling's up to standard, and as well as up to standard, it's standardised. So the assessment of schemes is done consistently, and the results that we get from those are also of a consistent nature. And it also, the modelling itself proves that we've upheld the network management duty and we've followed that. And we want to make sure as well, because modelling is quite a technical-based subject, but we want to make sure that other interested stakeholders can understand the outputs from the models. So we make sure that the technical documents have overviews as well and non-technical content there to explain the modelling process to all parties. And it helps us in public consultations to get the message across. So I'm going to hand over to Rob now.
Thanks, Lucy. Right, so these are the traffic modelling documents that TfL produces. On the left-hand side, you have the traffic modelling guidelines, and on the right-hand side, the model auditing process. These 2 documents are designed to be complementary and together provide a framework and reference for traffic model development. They're both complementary and complementary because they're freely available on the TfL website. In essence, the model auditing process defines the standards that are expected of operational traffic models submitted to TfL, and also provide a means for us to verify that models meet the standards we published. And the traffic modelling guidelines provide advice and guidance on tried and tested approaches to help traffic models be developed to those standards. In terms of document structure, the traffic modelling guidelines is divided into different parts. As Lucy mentioned, Part A is designed for a non-technical audience, So people that have some interaction with traffic modelling, maybe they need to get traffic models commissioned, but they're not modelers themselves. So it provides an overview and introduction to modelling and the responsibilities that go with getting modelling produced. Part B is a technical section aimed at modelers and practitioners. There's general modelling advice and software-specific guidance on specific traffic modelling software used by TfL. And in the last version of the modelling guidelines that we talked about 2 years ago here, we introduced Part C, which focuses on the healthy streets approach from the mayor's transport strategy, and with a particular focus on sustainable modes, including pedestrians and cyclists. As far as the model auditing process is concerned, it's made up of a number of different documents. Here we have the engineer guide. There's also an overview guide introducing the general principles of the model auditing process. It contains software-specific acceptance criteria for model quality and includes check sheets that enable auditors to verify that models meet the criteria. In terms of a bit of the history of the model auditing process, the first version was from 2007. That was a 20-page document that focused on transit and VISIM. It's then grown over the years. The previous version also covered Aimson Next and LinSig. And it's now grown to getting on for 400 pages, so it's increased a fair bit over the years. It's designed to make sure traffic models are developed in a consistent and transparent manner. And it enables us to demonstrate that we're meeting our obligations under the network management duty to make sure any traffic models we use are fit for purpose, and any decisions we make based on our outputs are evidence-based. So the first thing MAP does, there's a lot of different elements of traffic model development by different parties. So it establishes roles and responsibilities for the different parties involved. You have a set of roles that represents the project sponsor. So the developer could be a borough or a TfL sponsor for a TfL scheme. And on the TfL side, we have various roles within TfL responsible for reviewing signal design, auditing models, and with a focus on the network management duty. So this flow diagram gives a brief overview of how MAP works. So it's essentially a 6-stage process, 3 stages on base model development and 3 that focus on proposed models. At the start of model development, for either the base or proposed models, there is a meeting between all parties where the modelling requirements are agreed and documented in a modelling expectations document. Stages 2 and 3 go through development of the base model. So there's an early check at stage 2 to find any issues at an early stage when they're easy to correct, rather than letting them exist until later stages of modelling. There is a check sheet for each MAP stage, which needs to be signed off by the model auditing engineer. So you can't progress to the next MAP stage until the previous one's been signed off. For the modelling stages at 2, 3, and 5, there is a formal model submission accompanied by a model report from the design engineer, which is then audited by the model auditing engineer, who completes the check sheet and returns it to the design engineer. At stage 5, there's also a check of any proposed signal designs to make sure they comply with current TfL policies. Now, at MAP stage 6, we have the assessment where the model outputs are assessed and a decision is made on whether that scheme will be delivered or not. So we have formal communication with model submissions and returning of check sheets, but also each stage you can see the little speech bubbles, informal correspondence and communication is encouraged throughout the process to make it as smooth and efficient as possible. So moving on to the update we've been working on for version 4. One thing we consistently do when we think about updating our documents is ask for user feedback. So we've carried out surveys in 2010, 2017, and 2021. And we make sure we get a broad spectrum of feedback from all users, whether they're software suppliers, TfL staff, consultants, and even academics. So that feedback we assess and categorize into different areas. And one of the most helpful areas of feedback in our surveys is the text-based forms where people can say in their own words what their thoughts are, what they'd like to see. So from those, from that feedback, there are some key themes as far as the traffic modelling software we use, some suggestions for applications they would like to see content for, and maybe where some of our content has become a bit out of date over the years where it could be updated. There's a lot of interest in different modes and policies, particularly with pedestrians and cyclists, and TfL structural changes over the years. The modelling methodologies we employ, particularly in recent years, all the interactions between different levels of modelling, so microsimulation, tactical modelling, and local modelling, and also the one model. And there's general process improvements, feedback, like there's not enough space on the check sheets for meaningful audit feedback. They'd like some more room to leave comments. The update frequency, we're obviously trying to update our documents more often these days. So we've looked at that feedback and tried to think how we can best accommodate some of that feedback in the update. So now Lucy's going to go on and talk about the specific updates that we've introduced.
Thank you. So MAP version 4 was released last Friday, so still very new. And talking about what's changed in it. So the old version of MAP, the previous version, mainly focused on just a single software or a single modelling level on its own or single software, and also only just really assessed the single scheme. However, we've taken a more holistic approach in version 4. So look at the different modelling levels on the right. So quite often, we've found in our schemes, you can't always look at one model on its own. You get interactions between the different modelling levels. So from deterministic modelling, you might get optimised signal timings, which then feed into both your microsimulation model and your tactical models. And your tactical model might then feed in reassigned traffic, flows and routes back into the other modelling software. So, and there might be iterations between the two. And that was something that wasn't explicitly captured before. So, and then also we've got a 3-stage modelling process shown at the bottom, whereby we realised we couldn't just look at a scheme on its own when lots of the impacts, or if there was lots of schemes going on in close relation to each other, you had to take account of other schemes going into the network as well. So how we tried to capture that in version 4, we've made sure at the meeting stages that Rob just talked about, it discusses all the different types of modelling that may be required for a scheme assessment, and make sure it's fully embraced and thought about, so it's not just a single view on its own. We previously had one proposed model stage, but we've now split that into 5A and 5B, so that you've got a future-based stage and a proposed do something stage. We've also introduced individual checks to make sure we're capturing the interactions between the different modelling levels when they're required. And we've also adapted it to make sure, as Rob mentioned, the healthy streets approach from the Mayor's Transport Strategy. We've got specific checks now for cycling and pedestrians in each of the MAP chapters. And we've also expanded MAP now, so rather than the 4 software that Rob mentioned were in the last version, we've now expanded the scope following the feedback, and we've got JMAP for junctions, so priority junctions. We've introduced one map to cover the use of our TfL's operational network evaluator model, the one model, which uses Zoom. We've also introduced PMAP for pedestrian modelling, so that covers both BizWalk and Legion modelling.
So Lucy's covered the biggest changes in this update. And we've also done more general updates throughout the document. So we've tried to accommodate more recent software versions where software has changed over the years. As Lucy mentioned, more focus on active travel modes and specific checks on pedestrians and cyclists, regardless of the software being used. Some software-specific changes. So in the Vism model order process VMAP, we've reduced the number of stages involved. So we used to have separate stages 2A and 2B. We've now condensed them into a single stage to streamline the process and reduce some of the inefficiency in terms of the bureaucracy and multiple submissions. LMAP has evolved to allow for greater acceptance of zone-based traffic flows. They were acceptable in previous versions, but we've expanded the scope of that. And there have been more minor updates to the aims and next and transit sections to reflect the changes that Lucy's already mentioned, the stages 5A and B, and the pedestrian and cyclist checks. In terms of the document structure, we have followed the precedent and modelling guidelines of condensing it into a single document. So we now have a Part A and a Part B for MAP. We don't have separate overview and engineer guides. We're now combined into a single document. So non-technical users and technical users share the same document. So it's more transparent. Everyone works from the same document. And we've changed the check sheet format to provide more space and more meaningful feedback from auditors following model audits. There's no longer a requirement for design engineers and checking engineers to submit that check sheet because there wasn't really any meaningful content that they were entering on those forms. It was just extra bureaucracy that wasn't really needed. So that is the new document. As Lucy said, it was released last week. That's the website address where you can get it if you want to refer to it. If you have any colleagues that submit models to TfL, please let them know that it's been updated and point them towards that. And there's the email address. We do invite feedback, so if you do have any feedback on the new version or changes you'd like to see in the future versions, please let us know. In terms of future updates, where we go from here, we'll have an update relatively soon, before the end of the financial year, where we'll have a 4.1 update incorporating Transit 16. It was our original intention to include that in the 4.0 update, but a combination of our publishing timeframe and also a desire to include some of the recent changes in the later versions of Transit 16.1, that wasn't possible, so we'll be updating the document to include that very soon. And thereafter, we'll continue the same update methodology that we've been using. We'll ask for feedback from users on what they'd like to see, what changes they'd like to see us make. There'll be ongoing changes in terms of the modelling software and the modelling methodologies we employ at TfL. Mayoral policies, TfL policies will always change over time and evolve, and structural changes within TfL. So we'll keep the documents up to date to reflect all of that. And we'll continue with what we've tried over the last few years to update our documents and keep them up to date more regularly. So that is the plan. So that's a summary of what we've talked about, why we do traffic modelling, our network management duty. MAP is our attempt to provide a consistent methodology for development traffic models that's transparent to all parties. Those are all the specific changes we've talked about that we've made, and our plans for the 4.1 update soon. So that's us done, I think. Thank you for listening.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lucy and Robert. I think the audience can tell that that's a heck of a lot of work and a lot of expertise in a small number of slides, so thank you very much. Now, I know we have a number of modelers in the audience, and we certainly have clients of modelers in the audience, so I expect we'll have a couple of questions. Oh, yeah, there we go. Ah, yes, the man whose hobby it is to ask questions asks a question.
Thank you. I don't believe I need to introduce myself anymore. Thank you both It's probably a little bit off your topic, but you're the best people to ask in the circumstances. The way streets and curbs are being used, or the changes in the way they're being used, dynamic curb allocation, those sort of things, strike me as being likely to impact not only on the modelling, but on the auditing of modelling. Do you have a sort of roadmap of things that you think are going to affect your models that this audience might be interested in knowing about? Maybe 2 or 3 things that you think we're going to have to accommodate that in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever.
I guess not directly, but I know there's things coming out, obviously autonomous vehicles and different policies that we might feel are coming in the future. So I think we've always got a constant review of different items, and obviously it's always the software updates. We're always catching ourselves to try and keep up with the latest software updates as well. So yeah, it's always continually reviewed, and anything that our team's getting involved in, we'll always try and incorporate into the modelling guidance documents, and always be reviewing it and trying to keep these updates going more regularly so that we can capture those.
Thank you.
I think we published our modelling guidelines with advice on pedestrian and cyclist modelling. We obviously recognise that modelling cyclists in particular is very difficult. We're not necessarily saying we know definitively this is the way to do it, but this is how we're currently modelling it, and this is how our modelling methodologies are evolving, particularly for e-scooters and things. That's going to be a big challenge.
Thank you. Well, as you can tell, our speakers are passionate about their topics. I'm sure they'll be welcoming contacts after the event. So we'll move on to the next speaker, but we thank you very much. Thank you.